Hey there and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug video. And today, we're going to be talking through some future Love Square shenanigans, and more specifically, the future of this storyline going forward into Season 5, and how their interactions are going to play out, or at least how I think their interactions should play out, based on the story that's being told, if the writing is going to feel satisfying. But before we delve too deeply into all of that and start throwing out opinions left and right, we should probably define what the hell I'm talking about when I'm mentioning the Love Square. After all, not everyone's going to know. A lot of casual fans out there, no shame in that. So for the newbies or for the uninitiated, the Love Square refers to the various different pairings that can be achieved via the combinations of Marinette, her alter ego Ladybug, Adrien, and his alter ego Cat Noir. And this dynamic's really been present from the get-go in Season 1, and has ignited the minds of fans for years upon years. I mean, there's a whole wealth of artwork and fan fiction, theories and speculation. You name it, they've made it. The people know what they like, what can I say? And the writing team has always been firmly aware of this fact. And whether you think they're terrible at their job, or that they're the greatest of all time, there's no denying that they know how to get the fandom worked up through manipulating the interactions of the Love Square by slapping in some interactions throughout various different episodes. I think Glaciator is probably one of the more famous examples of this. The actual conflict within the episode only sort of involves the villain. The main things that got people talking were the interactions between Ladybug and Cat Noir, and then Cat Noir and Marinette. It got the shippers frothing at the mouth, to the point that the giant ice cream man was just added flavour to the episode. But anyway, back to the dynamic. From the very beginning, there's been very rigidly defined relationships in the Love Square. Almost all of it unrequited. Cat Noir loves Ladybug, but he's just her very good friend. Ladybug and Adrien, they love each other. She loves him, he loves her. And they're very, very awkward when they're around each other. And honestly, I think that's why they're rarely used as a result. They'd never be able to hold a proper conversation for a whole scene. It would get tiresome. Anyway though, Marinette loves Adrien and can't function properly in his presence, whilst Adrien views her as a very good friend. Meanwhile, Cat Noir and Marinette honestly have a bit of a bromance. They have no real romantic feelings, but they do have a bit of a flirty relationship and mostly just banter. Real talk for a minute though, they honestly have the best scenes. It's not really romantic in nature, which is very refreshing because all the other romantic pairings have very frequent problematic moments, or just moments of deep cringe, but these two just have tasty banter. Yeah, there's some flirting in there, but mostly just good banter. And it's honestly quite funny to see Marinette tear into Cat Noir from time to time, and he just brushes it off to disarm her with his flirting. It's honestly a pretty similar dynamic to Ladybug and Cat Noir, except it doesn't feel as problematic, as he doesn't push further and is more just joking than anything else. But yeah, this has been the dynamic that was set up ever since those first couple of episodes, and has really stayed largely constant throughout the first 3 seasons, apart from a few stray episodes here and there. And eventually, during the latter half of Season 2 and throughout a whole lot of Season 3, the popular opinion very soon became that it was going way too slow for people's tastes, that nothing about this dynamic was ever shifting, and if it did, it would literally revert the next episode like nothing ever happened. And so this then brought us into Season 4, and right from the get-go, we started to see a lot of shifting throughout the various different combinations of the Love Square, or at least through the 2 major ships, Ladybug and Cat Noir, and Marinette and Adrien, because, let's be real, the other 2 didn't really change in their dynamic at all. But there was some definite progression in the writing for the other 2. Firstly, we can take a look at Marinette and Adrien. The first part of Marinette's personal arc during Season 4 was to try and get over Adrien and move on to other people, or just move on in general. And obviously, it doesn't completely work, and she still retains a lot of those classic creepy stalker personality traits, and is still pretty cringe when she speaks to him a lot of the time. But it still felt like she was able to get to know him more on a personal level, and she was able to be there for him as a friend more than she's been able to in the past, and interact on a deeper level. But obviously, it still has that stalker cringe undertone. There were still some really absurd moments between them, but it did seem like she gained a little bit more confidence. It probably isn't all that much in the grand scheme of things, but hey, progress is progress. And then conversely, Season 4 definitely saw Adrien shift in his perspective towards Marinette. I think in the early seasons, it's clear that Adrien views Marinette as a fringe friend. He likes her and all, and he finds their odd antics funny, but they aren't super close friends. Season 2 to Season 3 is where I would argue the biggest dynamic shift comes from Adrien's perspective. He starts to get closer to her, talk to her more, want to spend time with her, confide in her. And then this just continues during season 4. The plot pushes their characters together quite a lot, and it becomes clear that Adrian considers her one of his best friends by this point in the story. Yeah, once again, it's not huge development. After all, the show definitely likes to maintain certain status quos until the very, very last second, but it is still something. And then we can take a look at Ladybug and Cat Noir, and it's clear that their relationship also underwent a bit of change during the season. As we know, the usual dynamic between these two is Cat Noir being thirsty as hell and Ladybug not being interested. Sometimes he flirts, sometimes he goes for the unconsensual kiss, but he always gets rejected. Problematic? A bit, but ultimately that's just the status quo we've had to deal with. We see it in season 1, and 2, and 3, and nothing else really changes. Even when she'd brutally slap this boy down into the gutter, he'd just spring back up the next episode, ready and eager to simp. But then during season 4, we actually start to see a shift in how they interact. Cat Noir starts to feel underappreciated and would frequently lose his temper with Ladybug and withdraw and become quite sad at times. He felt like she didn't really care about him or really need him the way she used to, that they were no longer partners, and he was just another one of the sidekicks. And meanwhile, Ladybug finally decided she wasn't going to put up with his clingy BS anymore and would frequently call out his toxic behaviours regarding their friendship, which further added to the whole drama that permeated their storyline. And then this culminates with Strike Back, where Felix pulls a fast one on Ladybug and helps Shadowmoth steal all the Miraculouses, causing Ladybug to break down as she feels like a failure and apologise to Cat Noir for not trusting him and treating him like an equal, blaming herself for taking on too much responsibility, and then failing. But of course, King Simp Cat Noir absolves her and forgives her instantly and tells her they're going to get through it together. Aw, how wholesome. And this ending really implies that there's going to be a big dynamic shift in their relationship going forward. Perhaps a reversal of the love square by chance. And I think that would be quite interesting. And so really, the writers have two major options now. The first is the boring and conservative play it safe writing choice, where they kind of maintain the status quo of the characters, except now Ladybug appreciates him as a partner again. Ooh, there's still the simping, and the creeping, and all that awkward cringe. And honestly, I could actually see them hesitating with this, because I was so sure that season 4 was gonna be the moment, the big moment, but then they sort of half-assed it and slowed it down. Yeah, there was development, but not to the extent that I expected. But at the same time, this would truly be a terrible way to develop the story. It would honestly suck and ruin the flow. Ugh, I hope they don't do this. Because once again, simply based on that ending, I think we're actually going to reverse those dynamics. Because is it just me, or was Ladybug giving him the eyes right at the end there? Blushing and all. I think this really just does have the best setup for some dramatic potential to help set things up before they'll obviously do some sort of reveal at the end of the season. Because surely they can't keep up with the will they, won't they find out storyline. They've teased it way too much and done too many reversals. It's well and truly time to pull the trigger. But before that happens, we can squeeze a bit more drama and cringe, the good kind, out of this storyline. Firstly, by having Ladybug become more and more enamored with Cat Noir and be very confused by what's happening throughout the season, whilst Cat Noir begins to pull away and treat her more like a very good friend, much to her surprise. Because it would actually be quite funny if the moment she begins to reciprocate any sort of feelings, he is no longer interested and tries to move on instantly. And who does he move on to? Why, in this scenario, it has to be Marinette, because that's the funniest thing to do. Because I think Adrian needs to grow a bit more as a character. Because a huge part of his character literally revolves around his Ladybug obsession, both in Cat Noir and Adrian-centric storylines. It's clear from the stuff that we see play out on screen that if Ladybug didn't exist, he would be attracted to Marinette. And honestly, he subconsciously is in my view. Psychomedian felt like a hint by the writers of that. And there's other episodes too, but this one really stands out to me. So why not have him, throughout the course of season 5, start to be all, Marinette's pretty awesome. And she never pushes me away like Ladybug, etc, etc. It's an absolute win. And then kaboom, he has a new person to pine over. And this gives the writers more opportunity to inject some premium angst into the story. Because will Marinette still like Adrian? Or will she want Cat Noir now? And it just becomes so deeply strange and awkward. And now Cat Noir. Does he want Marinette? How does it all work out? They have the opportunity to weave this tangled web and make a really interesting season 5. So I hope they go for it. Do the Hail Mary asterisk. Do it. because honestly, this feels like too big of an opportunity to pass up, as well as likely being the last chance for this sort of storyline to take place. They're gonna do the reveal. Come on now. And so anyway, I feel like that's a good point to leave off. And before I end, I would like to say that these are just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of all this? You agree with me? Or maybe you have a different idea? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.